Welcome back to the deep dive. I really hope you're sitting comfortably for this one.
Yeah, might need to buckle up a bit.
Seriously. If you are driving right now, definitely keep your eyes on the road. But if you're at home, maybe grab a blanket, dim the lights a little bit, and put your phone on silent. Just toss it in the other room.
Oh.
We are about to get into something that is equal parts relaxing and honestly a little bit chilling.
It's definitely a mind bender today. We're looking at a specific slice of philosophy that challenges, well, pretty much everything you think you know about the chair you're sitting on right now, or the walls around you.
Even the body you're using to listen to this.
Exactly.
We are specifically catering to the learner profile today. So if you're the type of person who wants to know how the universe operates under the hood, but you don't really want the stress of a theoretical physics exam or, the dogma of a religious sermon, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to keep it chill, we'll keep the humor intact, but make no mistake, we are going deep.
And I think we should specify exactly what source material we are excavating today, just so we're completely clear.
Go for it.
We are doing a deep dive into the Seth Material. Specifically, and I want to be precise here so you can look it up later if you want, we're looking at session 338 from the early sessions, book 8 of the Seth Material, recorded on May 1st, 1967.
1967, let's just context that for a second.
Right.
The Summer of Love was just kicking off. You had the counterculture movement exploding all over the place. Psychedelics were entering the mainstream conversation, and people were really looking for alternatives to the rigid structures of the 50s.
That was a wild time.
It really was.
But while a lot of that era was about exploring consciousness through chemistry or through political protest, there was this quiet, highly intense phenomenon happening in Elmira, New York.
Yeah.
You had Jane Roberts, who was a writer, entering trance states and speaking for an energy personality essence that called itself Seth. And regardless of what you think about channeling, whether you view it as psychological or strictly paranormal, the content Seth was delivering was staggering. He was dropping serious knowledge about quantum mechanics and the nature of matter way before those concepts had fully permeated the public consciousness.
It's just fascinating material. And to set the stage for you listening, the mission of this deep dive is to explore Seth's explanation of how consciousness literally creates physical matter. And I don't mean that metaphorically.
No, not at all.
I don't mean you just perceive the world differently when you're happy. I mean the actual nuts and bolts of how your mind assembles atoms.
That is the core of session 338. It's this idea that our environment is effectively a second body. And the chilling reality, and I use that word advisedly, is that we are constantly manipulating atoms with our minds, whether we know we are doing it or not.
Yeah, that's the hook right there. So I want to start by asking you a question, and I want the listener to really think about this too. Have you ever walked into your own apartment or maybe your bedroom and just felt like the walls were closing in?
Oh, absolutely. Countless times.
Right. Like nothing has physically moved, the furniture's in the exact same spot, the lighting hasn't changed, but it just feels, I don't know, tight? Oppressive, like the air is just too thick.
Or the exact opposite. You walk in on a Saturday morning, the sun is hitting the floor, and it feels incredibly spacious and welcoming, even though you haven't actually cleaned up the clutter from Friday night.
Exactly. And usually we brush that off. We rely on standard psychology and we say, oh, I'm just stressed, so I'm projecting my stress onto the room. Or I'm tired, so the room feels overwhelming.
We treat it as a perception error.
Right. We assume we're the broken instrument, and the room is the objective, solid reality.
We assume the physical world is this static stage, and our mood is just a colored lens we wear while looking at it. But the source material we are looking at today suggests something else entirely. It suggests that you didn't just imagine the room changing, you actually changed it.
That is such a massive claim. Let's unpack this. We'll start with what I'm calling the apartment anomaly.
That's a great place to start. This is really the micro-level example Seth uses to explain a much larger macro-universal principle.
In this session, Seth starts by talking about the physical universe itself. And he makes this bold claim right out of the gate. He says that the physical universe as we see it, with all its patterns and solidity, represents far more vast, unbelievably more complicated inner workings that are not physical.
Right, he is setting the hierarchy immediately. The physical world is just the tip of the iceberg. The real machinery, the engine room, is entirely non-physical. It's a complete reversal of how we usually think. We usually think matter is the real stuff, and thoughts are just wispy smoke coming off the brain.
Yeah, like an afterthought of biology.
Exactly. But Seth says, no, the thoughts are the real stuff. The matter is just the exhaust.
Matter is the exhaustive thought. That is such a good way to put it. And he brings it down to the domestic level immediately. He talks about your apartment. He says the immediate physical environment of your own apartment, for example, is the result of continual inner processes with which you are not acquainted.
With which you are not acquainted. That is the key phrase there. We are doing it, but we're doing it on autopilot.
Like breathing.
Exactly like breathing. You don't have to think about breathing to stay alive. Your body just does it. Your autonomic nervous system handles the gas exchange. In the same way, you don't have to consciously think, I need to hold the walls of my living room together right now. But your consciousness is doing exactly that.
That is wild to think about. It's like, if I stop paying attention, does my living room just dissolve into a puddle?
Well, not exactly dissolve, but the quality of it changes. And this brings us back to that specific example you mentioned earlier. Seth paints this picture for us. Imagine it's 2 in the afternoon. You're in your apartment. It feels comfortable, cozy, peaceful.
Sounds nice. I'm picturing a nice afternoon nap vibe. Maybe reading a book, having a cup of tea.
Sounds perfect. But then, 20 minutes later, nothing is physically moved. No one else has entered the room.
Yeah.
Suddenly it seems crowded. It seems uncomfortable. It seems cluttered.
I have felt that exact feeling. I've literally looked around and thought, why does this room feel like such a mess, even though I haven't touched anything? And then I start wanting to organize things that are already organized.
And this is where the twist comes in. Seth argues that this is not imagination. He says, you have changed the relationships existing within the immediate physical environment, and you perceive the change physically.
Okay, wait. I want to be precise here. Is he saying the actual physical relationship of the furniture or the walls has shifted? Like, did the couch move 2 inches to the left? Did the drywall shrink?
It's more subtle than macroscopic movement like your couch sliding across the rug, but it is physical. He's saying the quality that pervades it has altered at an atomic or subatomic level. He talks about how every minute variation of physical matter, shading of color, change in texture, the way light hits a surface, is caused by inner variations. So when your mood shifts from relaxed to anxious, you aren't just projecting that anxiety onto the room. You are literally restructuring the environment to match the anxiety. The atoms are rearranging their relationships to reflect your state.
So if I'm in a terrible mood and the room feels cluttered, it's because I've essentially manifested the clutter.
In a way, yes. Seth introduces this fascinating concept of space as intensity. This is one of those concepts that takes a minute to wrap your head around because it defies our standard geometry.
Space as intensity. Break that down for us, because to me, space is just distance. It's the emptiness between objects. If I have a cardboard box, space is just the empty air inside the box.
Right, that's the standard Newtonian view. Space is an empty container. But Seth says in psychic terms, space is about intensities. A strong emotional intensity of a particular nature can literally create a lack of space.
A lack of space. How can an emotion eat up space?
Think of it like air pressure. If you pump a room full of high-pressure air, it feels dense, it feels resistant. Seth is saying that high intensity like stress, anger, or frantic energy literally fills the psychic space.
Okay, I think I'm following.
This high-pressure psychic reality then translates into the physical sensation, and perhaps subtle physical reality, of clutter or crowding. The room feels smaller because your energy is taking up all the bandwidth of the space.
That is actually hilarious to me.
How so?
Because I can now use psychic intensity as a legitimate excuse for my messy office. I can just say, I didn't leave my laundry on the chair. I'm just projecting a high-intensity field that manifests as a lack of space.
You can certainly try that. My passion for work is just so intense, it's displacing the empty space on my desk. I really don't know if it will hold up in domestic court, but metaphysically speaking, you might have a solid case.
I'll report back on how that goes, but the mechanism behind it is serious. He says the physical world is a mirror that updates instantly.
It updates instantly. That's the scary part. We think of the world as hard and slow to change. It takes effort to build a wall or move a heavy sofa. It takes time for paint to dry. But Seth is saying the underlying nature of the room is fluid. It is constantly dancing with your consciousness.
The minute you change your inner state, the outer state shifts to match it.
Precisely.
It's like we're living in a holodeck that's buggy, but the bugs are our own unresolved emotions.
Or a holodeck that is working perfectly. We just don't like the program we're uploading. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is reflect the user.
Whew. That cuts deep. The system is working perfectly. So we've established that the room changes. But let's get into the how. Because saying thoughts create things is a nice bumper sticker. It's great for social media. But usually when people say that, they just mean, if I think positively, I'll work harder and eventually buy the car.
Right, the typical manifestation coach angle.
Exactly. But Seth gets into the nitty-gritty biological details here. This isn't just magic. He describes it almost like structural engineering.
He does. And this is absolutely crucial for anyone who wants to learn how this actually operates. This isn't just, poof, it happens. There's a mechanism. And this leads us perfectly into the next segment, the body as a transformer.
Right, because I'm not just floating around as a disembodied ball of light. I have this meat suit. I have a physical body. What is the body's role in this apartment shifting trick?
The body is the mechanism. It's the tool. It's the transducer. Seth says, in many respects, the physical body itself aids in these transformations, and he lists specific biological processes that act as the bridge between the thought and the physical thing.
I actually have the list here from the source text. It is surprisingly specific for a channeled text from 1967. He mentions chemical interactions, changes in delicate electromagnetic balances, and temperature variations.
Just think about that for a second. We know from modern science that when you have an emotion, your body chemistry changes. You get a flush of adrenaline, or cortisol if you're stressed, or serotonin if you're happy. Your body temperature might rise if you're angry, or drop if you go into shock.
Right, that's standard biology. We can measure all of that in a lab today.
But Seth takes it a step further. He mentions electromagnetic balances. We know the body emits a bioelectric field. The heart has a magnetic field that can literally be measured several feet away from the body. Seth is suggesting that these shifts, the chemistry, the temperature, the electromagnetism, they aren't just internal reactions to keep your organs running, they are outgoing signals.
So my internal emotional state triggers a biological change, and that biological change essentially broadcasts a signal outward.
Exactly. It broadcasts a signal that transforms the physical environment. The body isn't just a vessel for you to ride around in. It is a machine that translates the language of emotion into the language of physical matter. It is the interface.
So it's like, okay, let me try an analogy here to see if I'm getting this. My mind is the software code. My body is the 3D printer, and the environment is the plastic filament being printed.
That is a surprisingly accurate analogy. The body takes the abstract code, which is the thought or the emotion, and runs it through the hardware of those chemical interactions and electromagnetic balances to output a physical reality. The 3D printer head moves based on the code, just as your atoms shift based on the emotion.
There's a quote here that I think we need to read in full because it just sums this up perfectly and shows the raw power of what we're talking about.
Go ahead, read it.
Seth says, thoughts and emotions directly activate the mechanics of physical matter, alter and transform it, maintain it, and also destroy it.
Activate the mechanics of physical matter. That phrase stops me in my tracks every single time I read it.
It's heavy.
It implies that matter has mechanics waiting to be activated. It is not dead stuff. It's dormant stuff. It's highly responsive stuff.
And he says it maintains it and destroys it. That's the part that gets me. We're not just painting the walls. We are actively holding the walls up. And if we stop or if we change the signal,
the structure changes. This connects right back to what he said earlier about the environment being as necessary as breath. You are constantly breathing life into your physical surroundings. If you stop breathing, your body dies. If you stop this psychic projection, your physical world as you know it would cease to exist or will revert to a generalized state. We are actively maintaining the stability of the chair you are sitting on right now.
which brings us to the really big picture. Because if I am creating my apartment and you are creating your house, who created the ground the house sits on? Who created the planet? Who created the universe?
Now we are zooming out. We are leaving the apartment and going fully cosmic. The origin story, or what we could call the Big Bang of consciousness.
Because standard science tells us something completely different. It tells us that in the beginning, there was the Big Bang, a physical explosion of incredibly dense matter that expanded outward, cooled down, formed stars, then planets, then primordial soup, then amoebas, and eventually, billions of years later, brains developed, and consciousness just popped up as a byproduct of those brains.
That is the strict materialist view. Matter comes first, consciousness comes later. Seth flips that completely upside down.
He says the first explosion wasn't physical matter at all.
No. He says it was conscious energy directing enough of its attention into a generalized dimension.
A generalized dimension. That sounds straight out of sci-fi.
He describes it as a vacuum. Before this moment, there was absolutely nothing physical, just a vacuum that consciousness hadn't filled yet. And the explosion wasn't a bomb going off, it was an explosion of focus, an explosion of pure attention.
So imagine absolute nothingness, and then suddenly a massive, intense beam of focus just looks at it.
And that focus sparked the birth of specifics. This is a crucial philosophical insight to grasp here. Consciousness came first. Matter is a result of consciousness focusing.
It reminds me of the double slit experiment in quantum physics where the observer actually affects the particle, but this is like the ultimate observer creating all the particles just by looking.
Precisely. He says consciousness or action forms all realities. And here is the kicker, the part that blurs the lines completely. He says, basically, there is no difference between the creator in these terms and the created.
The creator and the created are the same thing.
Yes. Because the atoms themselves, the bounding blocks of this new physical dimension, are portions of that original consciousness. They aren't little Lego bricks that God built and then just left there to play with. They are made of God, or made of that original consciousness, however you want to frame it.
He literally says the atoms are alive.
Alive in those terms, yes. He writes, the atoms which are manipulated to form objects are themselves a portion of consciousness. They respond to emotional and psychic directives as the physical body responds to light.
Okay, this is the part that gives me the chills I mentioned in the intro. If atoms are alive and they respond to emotional directives, then my chair, my desk, the walls of my house, in a really weird way, they're listening to me.
In a way, yes. Not that they have human ears or human brains, obviously. We have to be careful not to anthropomorphize too much here. Your toaster isn't actively judging your life choices.
Good to know.
But they are conscious entities on their own scale. They are responsive to your intensity. Just like a plant naturally turns toward the sun, atoms turn toward or align with emotional intensity.
That puts a whole new spin on the concept of bad vibes. You walk into a place and say it has bad vibes. Maybe the atoms are literally vibrating with a negative emotional directive from the person living there.
Precisely. The physical matter has been programmed or directed by the consciousness inhabiting it. You are stepping into someone else's psychic exhaust. The walls really do talk, psychically speaking.
So we are basically walking around in a soup of alive, responsive atoms that we are constantly bossing around with our moods.
Bossing around with our moods is a very unscientific way to put it, but it's remarkably accurate. We are the directors of this atomic play.
But this raises a huge existential question, and I feel like this is where people listening might get a little vertigo. If everything is just one big blob of consciousness, if the atoms are consciousness and I am consciousness and the Big Bang was just consciousness, do I even exist?
Ah, the fear of losing oneself in the soup. The fear of the drop dissolving into the ocean.
Exactly. Am I just a drop in the ocean? Do I lose me? Because frankly, I happen to like me. I like my coffee. I like doing this deep dive. I don't want to just be the universe in some vague, general sense.
This brings us to the next vital piece of the puzzle. Identity, splinters, and the prime identity. Seth absolutely anticipates this exact fear.
Good, because I'm having a mild identity crisis over here.
He says all of this talk about consciousness and action does not mean that consciousness is without identity.
Okay, phew. That's a relief.
But he introduces a specific term here to describe us. He calls us splinters.
Splinters. I don't know if I love being called a splinter. It sounds painful. Or fragile, like something annoying you have to pull out of your finger with tweezers.
Try to think of it more like a fragment, a spark, or an offshoot.
Mm-hmm.
He says, what we know of identity represents fragments and the splinters that we call ourselves. These are part, however, of the prime identity.
The prime identity. Is that Seth's word for God? Or the source?
Seth rarely uses the word God because it comes with so much heavy religious baggage.
Yeah.
He prefers prime identity, or all that is. But the reassurance he offers here is deeply powerful. He says, the splinters are possessed of individuality, and such units will never be dissolved.
Will never be dissolved. That is surprisingly comforting to hear. So even though I am a piece of the whole, I am a distinct piece. I have a boundary. I have a self.
Yes, and not only are you distinct, you are necessary.
Necessary. How so?
This is the truly beautiful part of Seth's cosmology. He says, without them meeting the splinters, prime identity could not know itself, nor act upon itself, nor develop its own abilities or potentials.
Wait, walk me through that. The big guy, the prime identity, actually needs me.
It needs you to know itself. Imagine you have infinite creative potential. You are the ultimate supreme artist. But you never paint a picture, you never write a single song, you never build a sculpture. Do you actually know what you are? No. You remain completely abstract potential. You are a singer who has never sung a note.
You had to create something to actually know your own capability.
Exactly. We, the splinters, the humans, the individuals, we are the prime identity actively doing the creating.
Mm-hmm.
We are the brushstrokes. We are the mechanism by which the universe experiences itself in real time.
That is actually really cool. It's not just that I'm allowed to exist or tolerated, it's that my existence is how the universe learns.
Exactly. We are the mechanism of divine self-discovery. Every struggle you have, every joy you feel, every mundane moment of figuring out how to pay your rent or fix your car, that is the prime identity learning about its own potential through you.
I am absolutely going to put that on my resume. Mechanism of divine self-discovery.
I'm sure that will go over incredibly well in your next corporate interview. What are your greatest strengths? Well, I help the creator understand the very nature of existence.
I mean, they couldn't argue with it, but it really does change how you view your day-to-day life. If my little life, my struggles, my joy, if that's all data for the prime identity to learn from, it gives everything a bit more weight. It connects the mundane to the magnificent.
That is the underlying theme of this entire session. We started with a messy apartment, and we somehow ended up with the purpose of existence. But Seth doesn't just leave us floating up in the clouds. He brings it back down to earth for this final concept.
Right, because at the end of the day, we still have to live here. We have to deal with our physical environment, which brings us to the environment as a second body.
I love this concept so much. We are so used to thinking of our body as just the skin and bones, the perimeter of our physical form. But Seth argues our definition of body is way too small.
He says we create and maintain our physical environment automatically, as natural and as necessary as breath. But he goes even further. He says you use it so that your environment becomes almost like a second body, extending outward from the first, through which you express your inclinations and characteristics.
So my house, my yard, my neighborhood, that is literally my second body.
It's the physical manifestation of your inner self. Just like your face expresses your emotions, you smile when you're happy, you frown when you're sad, your land, your home expresses your psyche.
And he mentions this happens on a mass level, too. It is not just individuals operating in a vacuum.
Yes, and this is fascinating from a sociological perspective. He says there are intricate complications that arise as environmental elements merge and mix with those of others. You can see here the formation of nationalistic characteristics on a mass level.
Whoa. So national character, like how we think of different countries having different vibes or different temperaments, isn't just a result of culture or history or politics. It is literally the landscape being formed by the collective consciousness of the people living there.
That is exactly the implication. The land creates the people, and the people create the land. It's an endless feedback loop. The mountains, the cities, the weather patterns even, it's all part of a massive collective psychic creation. We are dreaming our geography into existence together.
That is a heavy thought.
Yeah.
Because if the environment is our second body, then pollution,
It's self-harm.
littering,
Disrespecting your own limbs.
it really reframes the entire environmental conversation. It's not just save the earth because it's a nice moral thing to do. It's save the earth because it is literally an extension of your own consciousness.
Precisely. You wouldn't willfully poison your own bloodstream. Why would you poison the water that flows through your second body? It shifts ecology from a moral duty to a matter of sheer self-preservation and spiritual hygiene.
Man, this session just keeps on giving. It is incredibly dense.
It really does. It ties everything together. You've got psychology, physics, theology, and ecology all wrapped up. It's like a unified field theory for the soul.
So let's try to wrap our heads around all of this. We have covered a lot of ground today.
We definitely have.
We started with the idea that our apartments change feeling because we are literally changing the atomic structure based on our emotions. Space is intensity.
Correct. The cluttered room is a high-intensity room.
Then we talked about the body as the transformer, the biological machine that uses chemicals and electromagnetism to turn those abstract thoughts into hard walls and furniture.
The hardware of creation.
We went all the way back to the origin of the universe, consciousness focusing into a vacuum to create alive atoms.
A prime identity shattering itself into splinters just to learn about itself.
And finally, the profound idea that the world around us is our second body, a collective creation that we are intimately responsible for.
It's a remarkably comprehensive worldview packed into a single session.
It really is. And, for the listeners who are hearing this and thinking, okay, this is wild, but I want to read it for myself, we need to give credit where credit is due. This isn't just us sitting here riffing.
Absolutely not. This material comes directly from the Seth Material, specifically the Early Sessions Book 8, Session 338.
And the publisher for this work is the New Awareness Network. If you want to dive deeper, and believe me, we just barely scratched the surface here, Seth dictates thousands of pages of material like this. You really need to check out the books. You can find them at the New Awareness Network website and bookstore at sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
Highly recommended. Reading Seth is an experience in itself. It is one thing to hear us sit here and analyze it, but it's another thing entirely to read the words directly. There is a tangible energy to the text.
And just a quick disclaimer for everyone listening, this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are just two fans unpacking this incredible mind-expanding material.
Indeed. We are just exploring the splinters together.
Speaking of splinters, I think I'm going to go home and have a serious talk with my living room. See if I can lower the intensity a bit. Maybe apologize for the stress I've been projecting onto the sofa all week.
Just remember, if you want to clean your room, you might actually have to clean your mind first.
That is the ultimate takeaway right there. I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. We talk heavily about your environment being a mirror. So look around you right now. Look at your desk, your car, your living room.
Don't judge it. Just observe it.
Exactly. If your environment is just a perfect reflection of your mind, what does your current view say about your soul right now?
Something to really think about.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We will see you in the next reality.
Goodbye for now.